Is there anyone new, somebody who wasn't here in the last class?
Yes, miss.
Okay. What we discussed on Tuesday was about grading criteria, about how to handle the assignments of this course, because we'll be discussing films and media content quite often. So I did ask students to think about visual content and textual content in films while doing their assignments. So it means that I haven't given any assignment so far, but sooner or later when I give the assignment, I do want that students uh, uh, familiarize themselves with the content of the films and what kind of dialogues characters have in the films. So I think that is something that we will need uh, while doing the assignments, because I like to see that students have briefly mentioned summary of the film or the play that we are discussing. Briefly means 3 to 5 lines, maximum 6, 7 lines, not anymore, like short summary of media content. And the other thing that I said, that while discussing media content, it would be useful to discuss uh, dialogues and scenes in detail, not the summary in detail, but a particular scene in detail. All right. Do you have any questions so far? And I think in last class I really wanted to you guys to introduce yourself to me, what I learned. There were some students from psychology class, some from DLA, and some, I think, very few from film and TV department or SMC. So perhaps we have equal number of students from 3 schools at present. So uh, did you understand what I said? Which department are you coming from?
Yes, miss, I understood. I'm from a film and TV, theater, film and television.
Okay, and which semester are you in?
The fourth semester.
The fourth semester. Okay, not bad at all. Have you studied any theoretical course so far?
Yeah, we were studying film and theory. 2 classes was giving him.
Introduction to film and TV?
Yes.
And did Tadar Alam teach that course?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it means at least you know very well how to talk about film scenes and dialogues, or
Yes.
how to write a scene or a dialogue, right?
Yes.
So in this course we will need scene descriptions and discussion of dialogues in classroom and also while attempting the assignments. Okay. So it's
Okay,
very
yes.
important
Thank
that
you.
we just keep track of these things. Um, all right. So did everyone uh, get a chance to go through the articles that I have posted? Did you read this article? Did you get time to read this article?
Yes, miss.
All right. So this article is by Nancy Jennings, and I think that I had mentioned in the last class that the both of these articles uh, are the result of some research that a German television corporation conducted. TV channel's name is Television. So this research was conducted for television by professionals. Okay, so Nancy Jennings, and it shows a number of names of a few other people here who have collectively conducted this research. I said this is not a complete document of research, it's only a summary of research, and it's a short summary. So what they did, that they conducted research of they spoke to children from a few different countries. It says 7 countries here. It describes at the top right here that this research is result of an artistic activity, and through that artistic activities children tend to describe their narrative identity. So students were asked to make drawings of self, and children belong to 7 different countries, which means that their cultural background is very different, and cultural background also includes their national identities and also their family identity or religious identity. So identity formation is something that becomes, it's not, if I ask you what is your identity, so what would you normally answer? What is your identity? Can somebody try describing what is her or his identity? Ji. Um, Sorry, to see your names, I have to turn on the camera because somehow I can't see names in Microsoft. Ji. Ji Dania, can you try describing yourself? Or Binish or Mashal? How would you describe your own identity? Who are you?
Um, Ma'am, I think that our identity is continuously affected and changed by where we are and what is going on around us. Our surroundings form our identities, and uh, being in this society, my identity uh, is a woman, and then it is also attached to where I belong, from the family, from the home, and yeah, the institutions where we are taught. All these things are forming us each day. So we grow here, and that's how our identities are formed by our everyday experiences. So yeah.
All right. This is what this article is precisely saying, that our identities are formed through everyday experiences. So, Binish, can you also try describing who you are and what makes
Yes, Miss.
you?
Yes, Miss. Miss, I would say that I'm a 21-year-old Pakistani Muslim woman living in Lahore, and yeah, I think that's how I would mainly say it.
All right. And how does Lahore affect you?
Sorry, Miss, I can't hear you.
What effect does Lahore have on you?
Miss, it's the city where I reside in, and partly some of my identity is formulated through that.
All right. Can you try adding something to it?
Uh, yes, Miss. Miss, like for example.
Yes, I specifically want to know about Lahore. What role Lahore has in your identity construction?
Miss, like for example, um, it is the place where I study in. Like my university is located there. I live there, and it is a place where I belong, basically.
Okay. Um, can you try describing the place?
Uh, Miss, like the place where I live in.
Know your identity in relation to the place.
Um, Miss, like basically, like my identity is like formulated to the place. Like for example,
Ma'am,
I was just trying to understand if you feel uh, how, like how Lahore changes your identity, and how would you be different if you were living in Islamabad or Karachi or in
ma'am, may I
Skardu? Ji.
Ma'am, I think that it does affect our personality and the way we are because Lahore is a big city and there are different types of people around you when you go out of your house. And then there are schools where you find people from diverse backgrounds. A university, in my class, there are people from different cities, but on the other hand, if I say that if I take my village name and I say that I live here, so it will also have an effect on me if I live in a small town or a small village and the people there will be of the same kind probably, and their beliefs and their everyday practices would be the same. Whereas in a bigger city, when you go out, you experience a lot of different things each day. You meet a lot of different people. Even when we are in school, we meet different kind. There are different kinds of students with us, and we learn so much from them too. And university experience is also the same way, that way. So I do think that living in a big, or जिस तरह मैम अक्सर कहते हैं कि her personality is like that, she's from a small town, she's from a village, and this girl is like this, she is from this big city. And there are differences, and the place where we live, it also has a huge impact on us, that if where we live.
Okay. All right. Great. I think this makes sense that the place we live in and the city we live in has is different. So a village looks very different, and people in village have different life than people in the cities, and naturally that affects our behavior, our lifestyles, our associations, and what we do, and naturally it has an effect on our personality construction, right? So this first article is actually saying that they are talking to children of age group 5 to 19 from 7 different countries. So because these children belong to different countries, they also have different religion at times, and their family associations and their cultures are very different. So these children, you see, some of them are very small and other are adolescents. So this article actually just tells you about their inner worlds, because the artistic activity was actually trying to explore their inner world, how children behave and how they talk. And this article actually mentions that the researchers were talking to both genders, male and female. Uh, this does not particularly focus on third gender. It just says we spoke to children. So genders are not identified, but children do talk about their experiences, and both girls and boys are included. Okay. So what in the middle it says the method of research, right? It talks about what they did. They asked the children to get brown papers, large size papers. So if you want to buy brown paper yourself, you can buy it, like in feet. So children actually traced their own life size outlines on the papers, and after that they were asked to draw something about self. So children were actually drawing images of their experiences, their associations, etc. They were given instructions. Some children filled inside the drawings. You can see there are certain body outlines here. This is a body outline, but only the head is represented differently. And there are some other body outlines, like children were lying down on the floor and drawing their own body outline. So you can see how, does this look like a girl's body outline? And it seems she was lying on the floor, and somebody drew the body outline like this. Only her hands are, her arms are up in the upwards, She has extended them upwards and feet are just there, rest of the body is just straight, and how these two other boys are lying on the floor and drawing their own body outline, right? Only this body outline is slightly different. You can see this boy has put uh, one arm on one side and the other on the other side. So he's lying sideways. Most of them were lying either on their torso, or on their belly. I mean, it seems that's how the drawings were drawn. And children are drawing their own bodies slightly differently, and after that they carry on the artistic activity. Okay. Uh, After they drew these drawings, they were also asked to describe or discuss what they had done, which means the researchers conducted their interviews. So this research is based on two kind of activities, as it says right here. Like for each participant, a full life-size outline of their body was traced. Participants laid down on their individual papers in stillness, listening to instructions to think about what makes their identity, what makes you. Afterwards, each participant drew their inner worlds in and around their body outline. So as I said, that they could use their full sheet. They could draw inside or they could draw outside the body outline and express and discuss what their inner worlds were like. Right? So participants were allowed to talk, write, or draw. So they were talking, writing, and drawing. And after that, whatever the researchers had recorded, they analyzed how children were feeling and what their inner worlds reflected. And they tried to understand similarities because of their age groups and differences also because of their age groups and because of their genders and because of their location. Because if children were coming from Colombia, their behavior was different from children who were coming from Thailand. Okay, so you can understand that children of different age groups participated. It says youth 63 participated from Germany, United States, United Kingdom, and Mexico. Experience typical family life at home. So children had experienced typical life means normal life at home. But their drawings do not show as such that their lives were quite normal. But apparently they thought they had selected not normal children. Out of these 63, 17 are from Germany, 11 from US, 6 from UK, 29 from Mexico. We can assume that these children are probably present in Germany because they were children on asylum in Germany, and this research is conducted by a German TV channel. Okay. Uh, Children from different regions experience different and often difficult situations, and these difficult situations are showing in drawings, particularly the drawing here. You can understand that both of these drawings are actually showing uh, that children had experienced extreme level of difficulty in their lives. Okay, so one objective of research I said earlier was, because the TV channel is conducting this research, they were trying to find out what kind of children are their viewers and what kind of content would be best for these children. So normally adults select content for children. Parents select it quite often. Parents guide children what to find, what to watch, and what to read. When they are infants, parents may be turning on baby television for them, or Cartoon Network, or some other channel like Disney, because they thought children can grow up watching TV on these channels. Okay. Through this activity, when they learn about children, they can plan future programs for children because they are learning from children about their experiences and also their needs. Uh, They are saying that some of these children who had faced difficult situations are, it says, children living in Turkey are refugees from Syria. 5 youths from Colombia formerly belonged to armed groups on the margins of the law. So you can understand that children family background is also reflecting on their inner worlds and their behavior and the environment they have been going through, right? And after mentioning the children from Colombia and Syria, where they were exposed to law and order and war situations, uh, uh, Jennings mentions children from Thailand, and she says those children were diagnosed with HIV. And you can understand if how a child would be feeling and what his inner world would be like if he has been diagnosed with HIV. And apparently, the kids' families, both parents had already died because of HIV, so you can understand the kid was also an orphan. Okay, so this research actually gives insight into the inner worlds of the children. It says the question was simple, uh, like draw your inner worlds, express who you are, what is your identity, but the answers look very complex. Identity has been defined by different levels of self-representation. We can understand that all these images are actually showing how children self-represented themselves. And self-representation, here she has, Jennings has mentioned, there are at least 3 sides to self-representation. One is individual, which means your personal concept or how you differentiate yourself from others, because all of us like saying and believing that we are different, right? And second is relational, like individual who I as I am, and relational means self-concept formed by connections and relational roles with others, which can be family members or friends. And third is collective identity, which is in relation to society at large. Okay, so definitely the drawings are a reflection on identity of these 3 types, which is individual, relational, and collective. Any questions so far?
No, miss.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after that, it says that children had internalized and evolving story of the self, and a person constructs to make sense and meaning out of his or her own life. So whatever we learn from 3 types of relationships, we try to make a sense of our lives out of these 3 types of relationships. Sometimes we may feel connected, and sometimes we may feel alienated to what we learn from others through relational or collective relationships. So this is actually pointing to our reaction or choices against the 3 types of relationships. All right, so they are saying the children made artworks, and following that, they interviewed the children uh, and asked them to describe their narrative, to provide their narrative identity, creatively and openly represent themselves. Their stories helped us better understand what their inner worlds are like and how they make meaning of themselves, because meanings is something we all need, right? So what meanings are we creating about our own identities through our relationships with these different type of people? Now, representation of the self model, Jennings has divided it into a different categories, right? For example, she says here that children, uh, because they were of age groups 5 to 19, so you could see how they were representing themselves. Sorry, what happened to it? Gee. Um, all right. So younger the children, uh, there was a greater tendency of representing self through reproducing the actual self, right? So they are saying that children actually represented themselves through drawings in 5 different ways. Number one, they were reproducing the actual self, which means they were drawing something that looked similar to them. It could be done through dress, right? Because it says here the child from Mexico, he was wearing a black shirt and black pants and pants with a red stripe on the day he participated. So he created himself as somebody who was wearing similar dresses. So drawing was actually in similar dress. So he reproduced himself, his actual self, right? And the youngest for the so you can see that this is one of the youngest participants, or for the youngest participants it was also a difficult task, because as you grow up your emotional feelings also develop and your relationships develop, and you learn more about yourself as you are growing up. So she's saying that it was difficult for younger children to reproduce their inner self or to express who they were. So another side was that their aesthetics were also different uh, with their age groups, and so after reproduction of actual self, there were children who were expressing themselves through different symbols of the culture. So we associate with cultural artifacts, and these artifacts sometimes have very uh, a lot of importance in our lives. For example, somebody may be very traditional and may want to wear a dupatta all the time, and somebody may be modern. So you can understand that children will react differently to cultural elements or artifacts, right? So the young boy from Mexico reproduced his actual self, and there was another 14-year-old girl from United States who painted her cheeks in red color, right? And when they interviewed her about it, she said, I have rosy cheeks. I was naturally born with them. So it means that for this girl from United States, her rosy cheeks were very important, and she was strongly interested, and that she liked reproducing herself as it is, like the boy from Mexico, the young girl from US. She was 14-year-old. She also reproduced the actual self. So this is one of the strategies. So Jennings is actually pointing to 5 different strategies, right? Right. So the second strategy is appropriating symbols of culture, which means what is important for them as children, uh, how they connect to culture or the ways of life they are growing up with. So it means that even if we have different choices, we are very well aware of what is there in our surroundings, right? Some children would use symbols from their country to reveal their inner world. Child from Germany, Mexico, Thailand drew the flag inside his body, and he said, I am passionate about my country. I have future dream. The child said, first of all, I painted the Mexican flag because I am patriotic. In future, I want to be president of Mexico. So you can see that this child is actually drawing the flag inside his body, not outside the body outline, but inside the body outline. So national identity is very strong part of this child. It's not essential that any other child was particularly identifying himself with the country flag or national elements, but this particular child from Mexico did mention that he is very patriotic and country and had a very strong relationship with the country, to the extent that he wanted to become the president of the country. Now, the next she says that 2 children from Syria and 2 children from Germans. How many children are they altogether? 114. Okay, so out of 114 children, 4 children, 2 from Syria and 2 from Germany, they drew SpongeBob, right? So you are drawing who you are and how you feel, and how does SpongeBob represent your inner self. So they are saying, uh, like 4 children drew SpongeBob, and there were other children who were drawing Lego. I'm sure everybody is familiar with Lego pieces. So children were drawing Lego pieces inside their body. They were trying to show their association with the sport or any other activity they had in their daily lives. And some other children drew Nerf, and children from Disney and US. Also, children from Germany also use Disney and US symbols or other brand names or logos to narrate their own identity. So you can understand that for the children of age groups 5 to 19, brands also become very important. And you may know that sometimes people say, oh, I like Zara's dresses, I always buy from Zara, right? Or people might say that I like to buy dresses from Kesaria or Working Woman, etc. So these can also be part of their identity construction and how they have a strong association with their inner worlds. Some children, apart from reproducing the actual self or connecting with the culture around you, children had also developed naming self strategies for themselves. Jennings says that a youth from Colombia wrote the motto, not one step back, liberation or death. So you can say that she has mentioned earlier that children from Colombia were exposed to law and order situations, and children from Syria were exposed to war situation. As both the children, as children from both the countries were refugees, their inner worlds showed a strong reflection to law and order situation or the war situation in their country. So this child from Colombia is saying not one step back. uh, it also probably reflects the kids' relation to media stories or to the stories that are discussed at home, that parents, whether they were living in Colombia or abroad, they were discussing stories at home or they were talking about war situation in Syria. So the children ended up having this motto in life, not one step back, liberation or death. So you can understand the children are very small, but their inner world is showing their relationship with arms and law and order situation or uh, the situation in their countries. And what this child did, he is inside, he is writing this motto inside the body outline. And another youth from Mexico wrote, life is inside us, outside of her body shape. So he's writing this motto outside the body outline and saying life is inside, life is not outside. So basically, though the kid did not write life is inside, he had a strong relationship with the inside life. Um, so these are the 3 strategies. And then she says a 15-year-old boy from US, he said, uh, he filled the artwork with words and phrases. This child from Colombia is drawing the flag, right? And another child is not drawing flag or flowers or football or anything else. What he is doing, he is only writing words inside his body. And when they asked him, the kid said, I say I don't know a lot. And this is what goes through my mind when I say that while we are growing up, sometimes we do not know precisely who we are. and there can be elements around us or thoughts around us that create conflict in our mind, or we get exposed to contradicting ideas, right? For example, uh, we may be told that we are Pakistanis and our culture is like this and that, and at the same time we may see culture on TV channels that shows different side of life. For example, in a TV program, one Pakistani girl may be wearing the traditional dress and another may be wearing modern dress. So it will create, these two images will contradict each other, right? So this kind of contradiction may sometimes create this thought, I don't know a lot. So because we are in a process of learning about us, so she's saying that that's how children express their inner world. So one child actually was writing words instead of drawing anything, and he kept saying, I don't know. Down the length of his outline, he wrote, I don't know, and he explained that he darkened the letters I don't know purposefully because uh, despite knowing, the inside is telling me I do know. I am just trying to avoid the question or the situation or the conversation. So it apparently shows the kid was not interested in expressing about his self, right? They said it's a 15-year-old boy. He does not wish to talk about himself uh, purposefully. So he's writing inside the body, I don't know. And at the same time, he's saying, I am trying to avoid the question. So you can see that the identity is slightly, he's confused, or he doesn't want to talk about it, or he's shy. So that is how his narrative identity is described. And revealing self pillars is the fourth strategy for identifying or constructing the identity, which means children and adolescents felt a strong connection to nature. So nature becomes self pillars, which means drawing flowers, fish, leaves, rainbow, and rays of sunshine. So these probably also reflect on their experiences of nature or natural world. So 15-year-old boy from US drew the shape of the place after which he is named, right? So he felt connected to the place because of his name. Some people use names, uh, like for example, when we hear Jamil Dehlvi. Have you heard of Jamil Dehlvi? Do you know who he is? Jamil Dehlvi is a filmmaker who produced the film Jinnah. So I used his name just to explain that he's using Delhi, which is Delhi. So he's using name of a place as part of his full name because he associates himself with the place. So this is in this study, a 15-year-old boy from the U.S. drew the shape of the place inside his body because he feels he has a strong relationship with the place. And a 16-year-old girl from Thailand drew a man holding the hand of a child standing next to him, right? So the man was apparently uh, the father, and in the interview the girl said, this is my family. My family is very important for me. I am my father's hope. My father is the one I have. If I didn't have my father, I wouldn't have anyone. So So is it clear how children reveal self pillars? So this part has only talked about their location and their immediate family members. So location means where you live. For example, Lahore may be presently part an important self pillar for you because you mentioned Lahore, and apart from that, family has a strong role here. The kid actually drew her father's image next to her, and she said she is his only hope. The fifth and last pillar is through, like representing the self through actions and experiences, right? So here a child is actually drawing soccer or football, and to represent himself, and another is drawing swimming and fishing kind of things, showing that what is important for the kid. All right. So I think this is quite interesting here that a girl from Colombia, uh, she unknowingly drew a lot of leaves covering her chest. So inside the body outline, she covered her chest with leaves, and she said, every time someone is killed, they are covered with leaves. So it's very strange, like drawing. When you asked her, you are wondering that she has covered with leaves. It's not showing is saying if the leaves were fresh leaves or withered leaves, but it's just saying that the girl covered her chest with leaves, and when they asked her, she said, every time somebody is killed, is covered with leaves. So you can understand the kids were exposed to violence and weapons, as it says here. So violence and weapons experience was actually reflecting in their drawings and was part of their inner world. Children had used different kind of general frameworks. I suppose you can understand what general frameworks means, because if they are associating themselves with families and places. So if we are saying I am a Pakistani, or if I'm saying, oh, I am a Lahori or a Punjabi or somebody from Bhavalpur, so it's a general framework, right? And if we are associating with specific elements, then it says, like we have specific relationship to specific situations or experiences that actually form our inner selves or our identities. After defining the discussing the five pillars, five strategies for defining oneself, she's talking about, like what impact their age groups had on their drawings or descriptions of inner selves. She says that, so the remaining part of this short reading is divided into experiences concerning age groups 5 and 6. After 5 and 6, the next one, 5 and 6 is pretty small. She is talking about only children of two age groups, like 5-year-old and 6-year-old. After that, she starts looking at children of 7, 8, and 9 year age, and then tweens, which means 10 to 12 years. And after the tweens, she looks at children of age group 13 to 19. You can see that she probably has most children in this part, because it's covering, I think, about 7 years. The first few are very short, like 3 years max at a time. Uh, the child from the children of age group 5 to 6 drew colored items placed within their body outlines, and when they asked them about the color items, they said these were the things that they liked or disliked. So children of 5 to 6 years age group are very particular about what they like and what they don't like. Of course, these are important for others also, but as they were describing their inner worlds, children of age group 5 to 6 specifically talked about their likes and dislikes. Uh, they're saying that the child from US drew smiley faces of the sun because I like to, he said. When being asked what has shaped themselves, children were talking about their experiences of amusement parks and Legoland and other places. So younger the children, they were talking more about their likes and dislikes and about their visits to places in particular, right? And some children did show traces of media experience. A 6-year-old boy from Great Britain drew himself as a rainbow ninja, proclaiming in his interview that I am a rainbow ninja. And I think characters do become very important for children of age group 5 and 6. Uh, I don't know if you what you can recall from your own childhood, but I believe that in the past couple of decades, Powerpuff Girls was very popular, and you may have watched the program. So I remember when my own daughter was very young, like 3, 4 years old, we sometimes did ask her, Sabine, are you a Powerpuff Girl? So you can say that because she liked Powerpuff Girls, she specifically liked Dora, and she liked Dora's adventures. And you may perhaps remember some of these characters. Do you remember any of these characters, or can you talk about any media experiences or your own experiences from childhood? I believe you have lived all these age groups, um, right? I never asked how old you are, but here it says children of age group 5 to 19. Is anyone here younger than 19? हेलो जी आपको समझ में आ रहा है मैं तो नॉन स्टॉप बोले जा रही हूँ आई थिंक इट वुड बी नाइस इफ यू जस्ट mention what you understand about different texts or you add your own experiences as we go on. जो अभी हमने जो 5 strategies डिस्कस की थी can you relate to any of these 5 strategies? For example, reproducing your own self. Sometimes I do ask students to uh, like if we were in a face-to-face classroom, I would have actually given you a body outline to draw yourself. But did you try drawing something for this class about yourself? I normally do it without reading the articles, so it's interesting to see how people represent themselves.
No,
No,
miss, like I didn't draw.
okay, but can you try describing yourself? Can you try? I think let's for 5 minutes or so try describing our own inner worlds. How would you describe yourself? Can you try?
Miss, I think before this class, at least the idea that I had in mind regarding identity of a person was that the context in which we're living in, like if the situation changes, like if right now I'm living in Lahore, but if I move to another country, then my role would change. Like my roles change in different social situations. If I'm a student, my role would be different, and if I'm at home, so my role would be different. It won't really have an effect on my personality or something. So yeah, yes, the culture of Lahore does obviously affect your personality, but that's changeable. Like that is city तो फिर मैं बदल सकती हूँ लेकिन the essence of a person, beliefs वगैरह values, they remain the same. Like मेरे जो values हैं वो same रहेंगी या फिर मेरे जो inner traits हैं and those I identify as important character, skeleton components of my identity. So I, if someone asks me to explain myself, yeah, traits, my characteristics, I can true to my beliefs. So yes.
Noor, uh, Jennings mentioned five different strategies. Which strategy you think would relate, you would use to to describe your own, narrative identity? She mentioned five strategies. One was reproduction of actual self. One was, strategy of explaining your inner self through culture, and I believe the third one uh, focused more on naming strategies, and the fourth on your relationship with location and family, and the fifth focused on representing self through actions and experiences. For example, your interest in sports, you know, or things like that. So number four was about nature and family, and number five was your actions, and the third was about mottos that you have in your life. Not one step back was the third one. So I'm just asking. So
Can
you
you
said
take two strategies?
she mentioned five strategies. First was reproduction of actual self. Second was through cultural symbols. The third one was about nature, and the nature and family, and your environment, which means both location and family. And the fifth
मैम
one,
थर्ड वन क्यों नहीं था?
uh,
Wait. Okay.
Third, was it the third one or the
जो थर्ड वन है वो नेमिंग स्ट्रेटजीज है ना. शी सेड दैट like the kid from Colombia said not one step back. So a Palestinian kid would perhaps also talk about certain mottos in life. So she said that
Yes.
people use naming strategies. And fourth was about self pillars because of nature or location or family members, so your immediate environment. And the fifth one was about actions and experiences. So I'm just asking, like what you described just now. Uh, um, uh, Naturally, in this class, you're not right now as we are talking about it. uh, what would you say if you're reproducing your actual self? How would you describe yourself if you were asked to reproduce something about your actual self? You would probably talk about what you are wearing right now. For example, I would probably say, oh, I am wearing a Pakistani shalwar pajama kind, like pajama and shirt sort of thing. So that would be reproduction of actual self. And elements of culture means that if I have done something which is very relevant to the culture, so the reproduction of actual self and culture would probably mix up at this point, because I mentioned pajama and Pakistani style shirt. So I would say that these are elements related to culture. Okay. So that's why I'm
Yes.
saying, okay, if if I ask you to describe yourself, what kind of what would you pick up? You know?
Miss, I think the fifth one, just when you explain the self through actions and experiences, because I feel that in your life you kind of develop your personality and a sense of yourself through your reactions or your response towards things that are occurring in your life. So I would pick the fifth one.
Okay,
and
so
I agree with Taika too that uh, whatever at times we are in a very different, we grow up in a very different setting. But when we grow up, when we start experiencing the world outside the walls of our homes and our safe zones, like our parents and our families, we grow out to be very different people, not like our mothers or not like who, brought us up, and not even like what we were taught. Sometimes there are the experiences like when we were studying war literature or when we studied African literature. So there were a lot of things that people were becoming because of what they were going through, what interested them, and how things were turning out for them.
All right. So you can understand that it is probably a reflection of the age group as well. Because the article is focusing on children of age group 5 to 19, but it also means that the last age group is, like teen and above. Uh, Probably at this stage, we focus more on our actions and experiences, and they perhaps describe our identity better. So yes, anyone else? How would you, what kind of strategy would you pick up to describe yourself? Jahangir? Jahangir, can you hear us? All right. Anybody else?
Hello, guys.
Ji Jahangir.
Yes, ma'am.
Which department are you coming from? Which school?
Ma'am, I'm from SMC.
Okay, you are from SMC. Chale, you have a lot of media exposure. Just try telling me which of the strategy you think you will use uh, to describe yourself. Right now, we have seen 5 different strategies. Discuss them slightly. So, which strategy suits you?
Ma'am, I think नेमिंग सेल्फ स्ट्रेटजी जिसमें आपने बताया कि फैमिली कल्चर वगैरह से रिलेट करते हैं ना वो स्ट्रेटजी से मैं खुद को बता सकता हूँ.
Okay. कोशिश करेंगे. Try describing yourself.
मैम एक्चुअली आई एम फ्रॉम डिस्ट्रिक्ट रेवियर खां, तो चोलिस्तान का इलाका है, तो यहीं से मतलब मेरी सारी स्कूलिंग भी इसी इलाके की है. तो इसी लिहाज से वो जो मतलब आदतें अभी तक मुझ में है, लैंग्वेज का भी थोड़ा बहुत मतलब इधर से मैं गया था तो अभी तक उस तरह इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज भी मेरी नहीं क्लियर हुई, तो ये चीजें अभी तक मुझ में है, कुछ खामियां हैं, कुछ लैक ऑफ कॉन्फिडेंस भी है, इस तरह की चीजें अभी तक ये मेरी पर्सनैलिटी में साथ साथ रही हैं, क्योंकि मैं थोड़ा बैकवर्ड एरिया से बिलोंग करता था थोड़ा, और एग्रीकल्चरल बैकग्राउंड है, तो वही सारी बातें मैं कहीं पे बैठता हूँ तो मेरे पास करने के लिए भी उसी रिलेटेड बातें होती हैं, और एग्रीकल्चर से रिलेटेड होंगी या अपने इलाके से रिलेटेड होंगी या उसी तरह की चीजों को मैं डिस्कस करता हूँ. खाना में मेरी पसंद भी वही है, मैं ज्यादा पाकिस्तानी साइड पे ही है और दूसरे कंट्रीज का नहीं लाइक करता मैं, इसी तरह की चीजें हैं.
All right. So you are overlapping. जो एक इसमें नंबर 4 था सेल्फ पिलर्स वाला, because you are talking about your location and you are talking about agriculture from that place. So that's why I'm saying okay, you are using 2 strategies right now. You're talking about naming strategies and you're also talking about self pillars, right? So self pillars में agriculture is very important for you. और ये तमाम चीजें, so it means कि you are talking about 2 strategies right now. जी, anybody else?
Yes.
Miss, I would go with the fifth strategy, and I agree with Amna as well. Our experiences shape us, and yeah, basically what we go through makes us who we are and our identity.
All right. Okay. All right. So the minute anybody starts talking about family or how important family is for him or her, so naturally it means कि आपकी जो strategies हैं उसमें other strategies will instantly be added, right? All right, so I can understand, like age group जो है that has a very important relationship with the selection of a strategy for discussing the self or describing the self. Okay. All right, let's see what is the relationship of age to uh, representing self. She's saying that, as I said earlier, that children of age group 5 and 6 were drawing very colorful things inside their body. They included smiley faces, they included their experiences of visits to uh, Legoland or thematic park and other similar experiences, right? And children specifically talked about what they had seen on TV and how they related to Rainbow Ninja or to Powerpuff Girls, etc. I would like to ask if Powerpuff Girls or any other TV characters or Disney characters were important for you when you were younger. जी कोमल.
Yes, ma'am.
Was any TV character, animated character, or real life character very important for you when you were younger?
I don't remember any character being younger, but recently, I mean, I've been watching movies. Abhi tak I see that very, you know, inspired by characters, movie characters. But Shankar, I don't remember as that. But
Do you remember any program, any specific TV program you were watching, or any specific Hollywood film you were watching as a kid, for example? Any of the fairy tales or any other tale that you particularly loved when you were a kid?
I don't know how weird does that sound, but I wasn't into
Oh, you were not.
fairy tales
Okay.
as that.
All right.
But yeah, but I do remember a scene of a movie. I don't remember the name. Yeah, kuch bhi, but there was a scene that I still remember. There was this child who um, has an accident.
So, did you
So
know?
there's a family sitting in a park, और वो बच्चा थोड़ा सा आगे जाता है और वो गाड़ी इसको क्रैश कर देती है. So I remember that scene,
All right.
but as
That was
somebody as a
a that was
character,
a
I don't remember.
was that a real life film?
I don't know, that was a Hollywood film and I remember that
Yeah.
scene.
So it was not an animated film, right? It wasn't animation based.
No, it wasn't.
So it represented real life. So people were there in the film. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think the experience matters because the experience that you remember is hard, like you watched,
Mm.
that was probably, was that the first accident you had seen in a TV, on the TV screen or in a film?
Yes, that was the first one.
Okay.
And I still remember it.
Yes, so, and you said you were a child at the time.
Yes.
Okay, so it means that experience,
Ma'am,
that,
I have something to share.
जी जी बताइए.
So when I was a child, I used to love these cartoons, Scooby Doo. I'm sure most of the people here know these cartoons. So one thing that really, shaped my thinking was that the things in those cartoons, what happened was they were, freaked out by ghosts, and they were followed by them, and they were, scared of those ghosts. And at the end of every episode, those ghosts were people. They were real life people who were wearing a mask or hiding behind an identity and, doing things to them. And it was like how people around us turn out to be, ghosts, and how people get really scary and they can do things to you that they may harm you. So as a child, I always, children do get scared of, ghosts and the ghostly stories. I always used to love horror was my favorite genre.
But the Scooby Doo, these cartoons, even till this day, I think of those cartoons, that how we are thinking of people, and then we find out that they've been hiding behind, their own personalities at times, which aren't actually their personality. They're hiding behind certain masks. And how, even being a child, I was thinking of those things until this day. I say that those cartoons, I think that even the children of this age, I don't find, such cartoons now. I mean, they are always fighting, and Ben 10, and there are machines and guns and everything. And those cartoons, like Courage the Cowardly Dog was one, and he was always scared, but he had to face his the things he was scared of. So these cartoons, I think, in our childhood was one of the best things that we got to have such ideas for us.
Yeah, excellent. Actually, that also shows that Scooby Doo taught you that keep
Miss,
looking for reality.
Miss, I would also like to add like one of my like favorite cartoon shows. There was this show called Wings Club, and it was like about like five fairies, and I would like identify with Bloom, like she was the main character, like main, because she was the leader and she had red hair, and like I would like familiarize myself with her. So I really like that show and that character.
Yes, excellent. Yeah, I remember that my daughter liked Dora, and she also liked rock and roll kind of music. So kids sometimes get uh, these guitars kind of thing made of plastic, and I remember how she liked carrying it. So I think it's excellent that you have mentioned that you could relate to fairies and to ghosts and to all these characters, and you were learning uh, how important it was to see the reality behind these images and to associate with characters, because these characters do teach us about life experiences. And yes, and fairy tales are very important as well uh, in shaping our inner world, when especially when we are kids. And I think sometimes they are very beautiful also and sensitive also. So do you think that these fairy tales made you sensitive, or they solve help you see how problems could be solved intelligently? um, right. Anybody else? Do you want to add anything more? Let me, I think I should mark attendance as well before we lose the slot. um, okay, let's mark the attendance first. uh, RS, is she not here? Amna,
Yes, ma'am.
Arsalan, uh, Binish,
Present, Miss.
Dania,
Present.
Hasham, Komal,
Present.
Laiba,
Here, ma'am.
Mariam, Mashal, Jahangir, and
Present.
Noor.
Present, miss.
All right, so we are done with the first slot. Let's go back to the article G. So let's see what children of age group 7 to 9 were doing. She says children in middle range drew separate images within the body outlines, but ascribed deeper meanings to these objects. A 7-year-old girl from Germany included a sun in her drawing because with the sunlight we can reduce our electricity bill. So children younger than 7 were not talking about electricity bill. Children of age group 7 were talking about electricity bills, it means their experiences of reality are building up. And at the same time, she is probably familiar with reducing electric bill issue at her home, right? Or saving electricity. So we can see that children of age group 7 to 9 are talking about reality right now. Children, a girl from UK said, "My brain tells that I am intelligent, my heart tells that I am kind." Right? So, what you mentioned about Scooby Doo earlier was an intelligent solution to the problem. And what you said about fairy tales was more about kindness, right? So what we see here, that 8-year-old from UK is talking about her intelligent brain and kind heart. She's saying that children often use colors that had a particular meaning for them. Pink stands for love. This girl from Thailand is talking about pink colors association with love. So we can also see that it's a reflection on her background. Thailand being very closely or internationally associated with relationships and love. The children of this age group often drew representatives of their family inside their shapes, and in interviews they relieved, parents and siblings are people you can trust. So you can see that children of age group 7 to 9 are talking about emotions and relationships. When she said pink is associated with love, she is talking about emotions. And when another child mentioned family and siblings as people you can trust, he's again talking about emotions and his relationships. 8-year-old girl from Thailand said, "My mother taught me how to love myself. My father taught me how to love myself. My siblings helped me to be a good person." So for children of age group 7 to 9, emotions, feelings, relationships, peers, and other family members are very important. This age group, not children below 7 to 9, this age group is talking about specific or favorite TV programs or games or Game Boy or iPad use, right? So this girl from Germany, she drew dinosaurs because she was afraid of them, not because she loved them, but she drew them because she was afraid of them. So an interview was essential to understand why she was drawing dinosaurs. And she said, "I'm afraid of them because they eat humans." And then she drew a huge black hole at her feet. And she said, "I'm afraid of black holes because I saw on TV on Welcome in Gravity Falls how some fell into a black hole." So you can see that this research is by a TV channel. So they are also trying to understand through the interviews about children's exposure to certain type of media, and media exposure of this age group is advanced than the media exposure of the age group that we discussed earlier. And here children, three types of emotions she mentioned in this part. She mentioned trust, love, and fear, right? So for children of age group 7 to 9, their awareness of emotions is higher than children of lesser age group because they are talking about their emotions. Children of age group 10 to 12, she's saying the tweens began to expand beyond the individual images and include written elements, brand names, speech bubbles, and universal signs such as peace sign. So we can see that this age group has moved beyond families because they are talking about universal signs, sign of peace. So sign of peace was not found in drawings of children below 10 years. And this is a drawing. What does it say? It says shape of Catalina, Mexico, the girl from Mexico. She says self-perception is typical for tweens and teens. 13-year-old girl Catalina drew grey clouds in her mind, feeding the tree coming out of her heart, and a cube, like in Mexico video games, for all the questions she has about herself. So the cube has a question mark, and the tree is growing out of her heart. We can see that it's right here, it's growing out of her heart into her head. And she has covered her head with grey clouds and a question mark inside the cube. She's saying that you can see that how children of age group 10 to 12 feel because children of these age groups are talking about specific situations and experiences. Children below 10 were not talking about specific situations and experiences, though children of this girl of age group 8 and 9 did mention electricity bill, but at this stage, specific situation experiences are even greater. All right. Tweens talked about what shapes their daily lives, right? So these children are more into discussions of their daily lives. Her feelings and both negative and positive feelings. As she had mentioned, a girl who had HIV, the girl is 10-year-old, right here. She's HIV positive, and she says she's talking about a memory of my parents and things that had happened. Self is getting more explicit. The girl from Germany drew wild hair around her head to explain, I am a kind of free spirit mind. So you can see that because they are talking about specific situations and experiences. So HIV positive is talking about the deceased parents and reality, and the other girl is talking about being I'm a kind of free spirit, right? Colors are purposefully selected at this age because they have a deeper meaning for the kid. The kid from Thailand drew her whole body in colors because she said she's talking about sadness and happiness. So she filled her whole body with colors, some to describe sad parts of her, sad situations of her life, and some to describe her happy part. So media use is also seen in terms of funny stories, relaxing stories, and stories that widen their view of the world. As I said earlier, a child had drawn universal peace sign. So children of age group 10 to 12 are talking about their experiences or worldviews they have. It says a 12-year-old from Germany explains how documentaries on street children have informed her about other children who have much less than us, right? So children before puberty hardly have experience of, or even if they have experience of world around them, they are not talking about them or they are not sensitive that others have less and we have more. So it helped her to value her own life as opposed to the lives of street children, right? So these children are media literate and they can interpret what they are seeing in complex stories in the media, right? So 12-year-old girl says she sees herself as Draco Malfoy from Harry Potter because even though we have our parents and friends, we still feel unhappy. So we can see that in Harry Potter, we have a child who has family and is unhappy, and a child who does not have the family but is contented with life, though he misses his family. I hope everybody understands which two characters we are talking about right now. So the girl says she's relating to Draco Malfoy, who is unhappy despite having parents and family and friends. 12-year-old, uh, another 12-year-old talked about bullying experiences on WhatsApp and how bullying experiences had shaped him, right? So again, WhatsApp is again something that is related with world around us. So we can see that in this part, children are talking about their association with the world. So as she mentioned, there were three sides to the self: personal, relational, and collective. So by this age group is relating to collective experiences. Now teens of 13 to 19 years age group, they are talking about daily life issues like peers, hobbies, media, what role these peers, hobbies, and media play in their lives. And they have more memories of, uh, they're talking about their memories related to peers, hobbies, and media experiences during their interviews. Deeper meaning of family, friends, and homeland, hopes and dreams. So 10 and 12 had moved into world experiences. Now this group is more into hopes and dreams, homeland. A young girl, a 16-year-old girl from Thailand says, my paintings express the question if our world will be cheerful again, right? So at 10 to 12, they had started experiencing the world around them. Now they are criticizing the world and its experiences, and they are asking if the world would be cheerful again. World peace is a key issue in this age group. Particularly, a youth from Germany a 13-year-old from Germany explains, I often think about it. I often think about world peace because it would be cool if it existed. So children probably are also learning that UN, United Nations, is always talking about peace, and she's asking if peace ever existed. Because so many other problems would go away, like factory farming, war, and everything, if peace existed. To symbolize their complex thoughts, teens use even more metaphors, like a 13-year-old from Mexico drew gray clouds in mind. We already discussed it. And another said, I think I am a girl with a lot of problems. Feeding the tree growing out of her heart, and a cube like in Mexico video games for all the questions she has about herself. So naturally she is playing video games. She is conscious of environment, feeding the tree out of her heart, but she's also very well aware of the puberty issues, or as she's in her early teens, she's 13, so she's talking about all these problems. she's facing because of her gender as a girl. Um, so these children are also very familiar with industrial life. So this is again a larger view of the world around them, right? And these children are also talking about the girl earlier mentioned WhatsApp. So these children are also talking about online environment, online video games, and online social life, etc. Now, what is the relationship of gender with these drawings? So she's saying themes of nature were present in drawings of both gender. So it's not just boys who are drawing nature in their drawings and boys, but also girls who are drawing nature in their body outlines. So, how would you associate with nature? Any experiences of nature or natural environment, landscape, or places? I think you may share. Ji. Jahangir mentioned agriculture. So, agriculture is more a human activity. Jahangir, any relationship with nature? Any other relationship? You mentioned Rahim Yar Khan. How would you associate yourself with the nature?
Ma'am, not any other relationship in my mind at this time.
Okay. आपने कौन सा सिटी मेंशन किया था?
Ma'am, Rahim Yar Khan.
All right. So what about natural landscape of Rahim Yar Khan? How do you have any experiences of sitting under a tree or walking to a certain place or specifically going to a place?
Ma'am, I'm currently sitting under a tree.
Ji?
I'm sitting under a tree this time.
Right now,
Yes, ma'am.
in Rahim
You can
Khan?
listen birds chirping behind me.
All right. So you are in Rahim Khan right now?
No, ma'am. I'm in Cholistan right now.
Okay. Are you there for work
Yes.
or you are there for any
Yes,
other?
ma'am. I'm there for work.
Okay. So you can see that this you said you are there for work. So this
Yes, ma'am.
actually again reflects on one's association with inner world. What kind of work
Yes.
would that be? Can you describe a bit? किस किस्म का काम है? What kind of work is it?
Yes, ma'am. I'm here to supervise our agriculture farms, which are here.
आपने
Basically, we are agriculturalist of this area. My father do agriculture on a large scale, so it's my duty now to supervise these farms.
right? Okay. Can I ask how old are you?
Yes, ma'am. I'm 22.
All right. So you have moved up age group 19, right? So it means
Yes.
your inner world has also changed.
Yes, ma'am. My world is totally changed.
Okay. And you mentioned we can hear the birds. We can't. We can understand the birds would be sitting on the tree. All right. So young girls and boys both tended to represent more certainly, more concretely. और आपने जो डिस्कस किया अभी your experience from your work experience and nature's experience from Rahim Yar Khan, I think you can see that you are concretely relating to these experiences, right? So they are saying young girls were as likely to draw pictures that reproduce the actual self as young boys. जो उन्होंने पहले 5 strategies mention की थी. So they said either boys or girl could use those strategies. Right? And when reproducing actual self, sometimes you could see the difference based on clothing. Right? Girls used signs of gender, like expressing their love for soccer, as well as slight tendency that girls are expressing. A 15-year-old girl from Mexico drew a patch over her mouth, and what would that patch describe? If somebody is drawing a patch on her mouth, she's saying she's expressing the feeling of being silenced, right? So inner self for in uh, past 60, 70 years, people have been talking a lot about voice. And I think we mentioned voice even in yesterday's discussion, and we mentioned women's mobility, women's voice, and Jahangir, what is your experience of women's mobility or voice from Rahim Yar Khan or from Lahore?
मैम समझ नहीं आपने क्या पूछा है?
देखें, यहाँ पे जो जेंडर वाला मेंशन था, उसमें उसने कहा
जी जी
कि both genders use any of the strategies to express self, right? वो जो हमने 5 strategies discuss की, she said
जी जी
both genders can use any of the strategies. But then she specifically mentioned drawing of a girl who drew a patch on her mouth. For example, इस तरह करके एक patch बना दिया, which means she was talking about her silencing experiences. लड़कियों को हम अक्सर मना कर देते हैं to talk about certain things, right? So she's saying that
यस मैम
she was talking about silencing because she drew a patch on her mouth. आपसे मैंने ये पूछा कि what is your experience of women's mobility or silencing from Rahim Yar Khan or Lahore? Do you think कि लड़कियों को चुप करा देते हैं, they are silenced or they are told not to go here and there? Mobility actually means
मैम
her ability to go to several places or to any place by choice.
मैम ये फैमिली टू फैमिली वेरी करता है, एरिया टू एरिया भी वेरी करता है। ये देखी तो है चीज है, लेकिन ये इसमें कोई ये नहीं होता कि सारा इलाके में एक जैसी एक ही जैसी मतलब कि वो जैसे कहने रवायत घर घर का डिफरेंस होता है। कईयों के मतलब वो जो मर्द हजरात हैं वो और तरह सोचते हैं, कुछ तरह के और तरह सोचते हैं, कुछ आज़ादी देते हैं, कुछ नहीं देते। कुछ होते हैं जो खुद कम पढ़े लिखे होते हैं लेकिन अपने बच्चों को पढ़ाई की आज़ादी देते हैं, कुछ ज्यादा पढ़े लिखे होते हैं, वो अपने मतलब फीमेल की बात कर रहा हूँ, वो अपने घर में बच्चों को पढ़ने की उस तरह इजाजत नहीं देते। तो ये इंडिविजुअल्स पे मेरे ख्याल से डिपेंडेंट होती है चीज, ये एरियाज पे उस तरह नहीं है।
All right. So I have a next question. इजाजत किसने देनी
Yes.
है?
I have something to say regarding that question you asked, Jahangir. So I also belong to a village, and हमारा भी जो background है, it's agriculture, and we're landlord और उस तरह से. So we live in Lahore. I'm born in Lahore, but we go to our village like really often. So in Lahore, my father never imposed anything, any obligations on me that I have to wear a dupatta on my head or something like that. But when we are, it's an all, ever since I've grown up, this thing has been continuous. And when we go to our village, my father always tells me to, you should wear a dupatta on your head because, now we are अब हम गांव में हैं तो यहाँ पे हमारी फर्क है चीज, और यहाँ पे लोग अगर देखते हैं तो उन्हें पता है कि तुम मतलब who's your grandfather and who's your grandmother, so you are supposed to be a certain way. So when we go there, and it's not just with me, it's with all my cousins. When we are in our schools or when we are going to our universities, we dress the way we want to dress. But when we are in our village, We don't wear jeans, we don't wear such clothes that, and we don't have to, keep our our languages. We have to take care of our family members and how people are, looking at us and everything. Then, because there it's also like a joint family. We have the same house, we live there. When we go there on Eid and everything, so it's very different there. So in the same family, we are given two different set of rules. One is for the city, and one is when we go back to our village.
All right, very true. I think that actually, I think many of us may have experienced this kind of strategies for living in the cities and when we are in the villages. That's very correct. Um, okay, so do you think that has an effect on your mobility as well, Amna?
Ma'am, I honestly, I don't mind when I do, sometimes get annoyed when, they're, when we're told to do these things. But, I don't mind because at the end of the day, we do belong to that place. And it has shaped me in a certain way. It has actually made me a little, I think, more flexible the way they want their daughters to be, according to the what our parents want us to be like. And I think they, work really hard to, to keeping that thing in track. That they should be, adaptable to these situations. And I think it has shaped me this way too. So I don't really get angry now because it's been happening ever since I've grown up.
Right. So I wasn't particularly talking about anger, but it's fine. You mentioned that it can be, like it can raise your questions in your mind or it can make you angry. I noticed a difference between what you said and what Jahangir said. When you said, when you discuss that you are told to live this way in Lahore or that way in the village, you said they tell us, and then you mentioned parents. So you were talking about both the parents, means mother and father, which means both the genders. When Jahangir
Yeah.
was talking about it, Jahangir was talking about, he wasn't talking about both parents, he was talking about uh, कौन अलाउ करता है कौन अलाउ नहीं करता. So that was my last question with him, कि इजाज़त किसने देनी है. So I don't think he was talking about both the genders. I think he was talking about only one gender. Jahangir, can you help me understand that what I'm saying I'm assuming, or is it correct?
You are correct, ma'am. I'm talking about males, elder males of the family.
Okay.
Sometimes their mothers want their children to learn, but study in other fields, but their fathers not allow them to study further.
All right. So what actually you were talking about was you were talking about male's decision, like father being the head of the family decides कि
Yes, ma'am.
किसको कितनी इजाजत देनी है, किसने क्या करना है, किसने नहीं करना है. You said it was inconsistent, but there was a general rule for the family, and then family rules were different from one place, from one house to the other.
Yes, ma'am.
भेज ना मैनू क्यों बुला रही है जी.
कुछ घरों में मैम होता है इस तरह, कुछ में नहीं होता. ये मैं यही कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि ये पर्सन टू पर्सन वेरी
All right.
करता है.
So
इस
we had raised two questions here. One was about woman's voice, and one was about woman's mobility. तू चली जाना नाल जी. जी, तो woman's voice and woman's mobility. Any reactions on any other reactions on the question of woman's voice and mobility? Uh, Anyone who hasn't said anything so far? Ji Komal, would you like
Yes,
to
I
add?
have raised my hand. वो आपको शायद notification नहीं जाता. I
नहीं,
don't like to interrupt, तो मैं hand raise करती हूँ.
अच्छा नहीं, वो हैंड मुझे sometimes I see hands, sometimes I wait for you to say something. जी, you can add
Yeah, I was only
after somebody is quiet. You
जी
can
जी.
certainly start. जी.
See, I was only going to comment on Amna's comments के अब आदत भी हो गई है और मतलब आदत हो जाती है इंसान को और ये नॉर्मल बात है नेचुरल है कि वो अपने आप को पर्सन ट्राइज टू अडैप्ट to what has been told to them from very early years of their life. But I feel कि यहाँ पे there should be one thing that needs to be mentioned कि ये जो आदत हम लोग कहते हैं कि हो गई है, this is not आदत. ये आपका मेरे ख्याल से जो साइकी है उसको कितनी बुरी तरीके से अफेक्ट करता है इसके बारे में. Of course, Amna has been talking about it. मतलब we are from same department and she knows मैं क्या बोल रही हूँ. But I think इस क्लास में specifically mention करना जरूरी है क्योंकि हमारे डिपार्टमेंट के लोग नहीं हैं. And I think we other people from other departments should listen to what we have learned. क्योंकि इंटर डिपार्टमेंट का यही होता है ना that we learn from each other. So I only wanted to mention this कि when you talk about कि who's giving the permission, who's not giving the permission, it's not about male and female कि कौन रोक टाक कर रहा है. The point is that the kind of impression we have on our heads कि सिंपल सी बात भी अगर आप किसी को बोलते हैं कि आपका जो दुपट्टा है थोड़ा सा नीचे है आप उसको ठीक करो, मेरे तो ख्याल से वो एक सेंटेंस जो है it's like a bomb to anyone's head, at least to mine. तो इतनी हम मेरे ख्याल से इस कॉन्वर्सेशन को इतने कैजुअली अगर हम थोड़ा सा प्रोसीड करें वो ठीक है. वो क्लास का जो भी मेंशन है कि किसी भी इंसान की साइकी बहुत बुरी तरीके से अफेक्ट होती है बेशक वो जितना भी आदी होगा इस चीज का.
All right.
I completely agree with what she is saying, what Komal is saying. That even this thing that when we say कि हमें आदत हो गई है, it is this ये हमें impose की जाती है certain चीजें and at times we don't want to go in that flow, आदत वाला flow, but we are because we are not given another option to go against that flow and mostly we are told to just be that way. So I agree with what you said.
Okay. So, do you think जो आदत आपने मेंशन किया, ये is it presented as something natural or it is something के it's not natural but it's part of the norms?
मैम आई थिंक कि ये चीज डिपेंड भी करती है कि आदत किस चीज की है. आई थिंक कि जो चीजें हम खुद सीखें और उन चीजों से कुछ आदतें हमारी चेंज हो जाए और डल जाए हमें, वो एक डिफरेंट बात है. लेकिन कुछ चीजें जो हमारे कल्चरल नॉर्म्स बन गए, सोसाइटल नॉर्म्स बन गए, अगर हमें उन चीजों की आदत डालने की कोशिश की जाए और बच्चों को सिखाने की कि दिस इज द राइट वे एंड दिस इज द रॉन्ग वे, दिस इज द पाथ यू नीड टू चूज. सो ये वाली आदत जो है आई थिंक कि ये एक प्रॉब्लमैटिक चीज है जो कि है हमारी और हम बहुत सी आई थिंक इन एवरीवेयर इन द वर्ल्ड दिस एग्जिस्ट. हमारी डिफरेंट हो सकती हैं, कहीं और डिफरेंट हो सकती हैं. सो
मिस रजीना
जी जी.
बड़ी सिंपल सी बात है कि जब आप पूछते हैं कि वो आदत नेचुरल है या अननेचुरल, तो आपको एक सिंपल सा तरीका है इसको देखने का कि किसी भी इंसान की फितरत होती है कि वो आप कंट्रोल्ड होना नहीं चाहते. तो मेरे नहीं ख्याल से देयर इज एनीवन इन दिस वर्ल्ड हु लाइक्स टू बी कंट्रोल्ड एंड टोल्ड कि ये ठीक नहीं है, ये अपना थोड़ा सा ये ठीक कर लो, आप शर्ट नीचे कर लो, आप पैंट ऊपर कर लो. ये वाली बातें आदत कभी भी नहीं हो सकती. ये प्रेजेंट की जाती है और बड़े अननेचुरल तरीकों से. फिर मैं कहती हूँ कि स्मार्टली हमारे पेरेंट्स बड़े प्यार से हमें मैनिपुलेट कर लेते हैं उससे कि हम बताएंगे तो हाउ डू यू नीड टू ड्रेस.
All right.
It can never be any other ever.
Okay. चलो ठीक है. So what is more important is to understand कि what is natural and what is presented as something natural, in terms of gender behavior, right? Because the other article that I posted actually talks about what is natural and what is uh, presented as natural, and then we are expected to perform those roles. Okay. All right. Please just give me 2 minutes. I'll be back. I think in less than 2 minutes. Okay. If you like, you can explain, like what Adat really means in the meanwhile. I'll be back. I have to turn off this phone and I'll be back in a minute, Ji. Ji, sorry. Ji, hello. All I wanted to say कि you mentioned Adat. So Adat is something जो कि I think the next article, which is a very short article, uh, it explains that part. So I think अगर if we get some time, we'll try checking that as well. तो यहाँ पे we were talking about silencing and women's mobility issues. So I think it's more cultural than natural, uh, you know, जो आप उसको कह रही थी कि आदत हो गई है. So आदत is because of the culture. अच्छा, here it talks about another girl. This girl, 16-year-old girl, she identifies gender as fluid, right? She drew a question mark between her legs and explained, most people think I'm a guy because of my short hair and the way I act. So, like, I don't even know what I am like. How half of my friends call me a guy and half of my friends call me a girl. And like the rest of them call me they or them or so. I don't know. So this girl is very, very confused because she is considered part of three genders simultaneously. So you can see that her inner world is quite complex. Okay, so girl is very confused, and I think sometimes we know that in our cultures also, plain girls are not considered very uh, feminine-ish. Okay, so traces of culture are also seen in the Mexican shapes. Uh, children were showing their inner lives in their drawings. Like one of the kids said, life is inside us, and a young girl alongside her picture, she wrote, life is inside us. Uh, she's saying that Jennings is saying Mexican artists used bright and vibrant colors and also dark colors to express the spectrum of their emotions, right? So the kids were talking about sorrow, grief, fear, stress, pleasure, love, and all different kinds of emotions. And this emotional expression, traces of culture, did show their emotional expression that were perhaps more related to culture. So children were talking about their painful feelings, their hidden feelings, their stressed feelings, and uh, sometimes their secrets as well, that could be under the effect of culture, right? So I think what you said about village experiences or urban experiences perhaps would relate more to hidden or suppressed uh, emotions or secret emotions. Like sometimes we do not agree with what our parents keep telling us, or we perhaps do not want to live that way. I think somebody just mentioned, Komal probably mentioned that when you tell somebody to कि जो दुपट्टा ठीक कर लो, so this probably would happen more in a village, and it may also happen in the city, but people may be very sensitive about these things even if they are very modern, because we may not be very comfortable with comments and it would affect our inner worlds, etc. Right? One of the girls is saying, when I am sad, no one sees me sad. So that is another thing, like silencing in terms of emotions, that we do not encourage people to express emotions, right? So she's saying, when I'm sad, no one sees me sad. I just get on with it myself until it passes, and only then do I come back out into the world. So it means that when she's uh, deep absorbed in her emotions, she perhaps is not even aware of the world around her, right? Uh, the picture that she drew, in that picture, she was wearing an armor, a metaphor of protecting herself. So she's talking about her emotions that she's not allowed to express, but she's wearing an armor that is to protect herself. Next part is like what else was seen is like illness and HIV. So you can see that the kid who's been diagnosed with HIV shared very conflicting images that showed hope and also uncertainty and doubt. So HIV infected picture is, infected child is drawing a picture that has mixed emotions. hope, uncertainty, and doubt, also fears and strength, symptoms of strength and resilience that are shown in other pictures. So children's pictures are showing this different kind of emotions, but you can see the kid from Thailand is HIV infected, so he has mixed emotion, hope, uncertainty, and doubt simultaneously. Right? So let's see who drew this picture. This is 15-year-old girl from Thailand. She drew a red ribbon inside her shape, the universal symbol of awareness and support for those living with HIV. So I think here is the red ribbon part. Okay. I'm not sure if you can see the arrow, but I'm sure you can. If you don't see the cursor, you at least can see the red ribbon in the body. So the child apparently has a very strong association with nature. Here is a home. She has a strong association with hope. And at the same time, this part is very, very dark. You can see one of the arms is very dark, and there are dark patches in other places. So all kind of emotions are being seen here. These two drawings on the left is a drawing by a child from Syria. You can see here is an eye, and blood drops are falling down from the eye and going straight in the heart. And then you see peace slogan or pigeon, and underneath you also see a child leaving his home. Here is a bomb. I think the bomb is dropping down on the house and the child is running away. It says shape of Kamal, the 11-year-old Syrian refugee, drew a blood-crying eye dropping into the heart and a boy running from his home. The picture on the right is from Henry from Colombia, a former child soldier who drew what is embodied in his mind and the past. So this child is a refugee, but he is talking about, you can see this big gun in his leg right here, and then rest of the picture is also showing law and order and extreme situations that the child is probably exposed to from his experiences of Colombia. All right, so what were we discussing here? Yeah. Thai youth drew picture of their future and ambitions to be a science teacher, to graduate from school, to have a home, money, and family. So you can see when she mentioned the kid is suffering from HIV, the kid is hoping for a home, money, and family, and at the same time, the kid is seeing uncertainty. Some of my dreams, a 15-year-old girl said, some of my dreams might become true and some might not. So again, children are expressing in uncertainty in their discussions. There is a need to feel accepted by others despite their illness. So it also shows that people probably try to stay away from HIV patients because it's highly infectious. So the kid is experiencing lack of connection with others. 15-year-old girl said, I like people to understand that even though I got infected, I have abilities and imaginations that will help me have a bright future. So you can see that she has hope, though she is lonely. I also want to tell them they should not think negative about infected children. And should have positive thoughts towards them, right? And then she's saying, I miss my family because they are away from them. A few acknowledge their illness and body awareness through their drawings. So you can see that these children are aware of their bodies also, because she's a 15-year-old kid. So 15-year-old children are aware of their bodies, their illnesses, and what is there for them and what is not there for them in terms of relationships, and there for them in terms of treatment opportunities. A child drew organs, bones, and veins and said, I painted my body and things that are inside my body and their functions. So you can understand that they are learning about inner and outer sides of the body and their functions. And the 18-year-old girl said, I keep smiling in front of others. I let them know that I am okay and that I keep fighting and I can bear whatever it is. So it means that in later teens, they are learning how to cope with whatever it is. Because I think, as perhaps Komal said earlier, choices are not given. Right? Then in the end, she's talking about Syrian refugees and their war experience. Kamal drew a blood crying eye. She already said, into the heart and a boy running from home. Regarding the content of the shape, the most prominent outcome was to see how they expressed their love for Syria, Arabic language, and Quran. Right? So, despite this drawing being from a war situation, when they interviewed the kid, they found he is deeply in love with Syria, his Syrian language, Arabic language, and his religion, that is Quran. So the inner self actually showed strong association with language, land, and religion in particular. Right? So another 8-year-old boy from Syria again showed his love for Arabic language, and an 11-year-old boy drew mountains and rivers from Syria. Right? So these are refugee children. So again, mountain rivers also show deep love for the land. 11-year-old boy drew these landscapes outside his body, so he was probably feeling he was in Syria when he was drawing these things. One of the kids, Syrian kids, started singing a folk song during the interview, so you can understand his expression and his emotions and feelings for the land. And these were very important pillars of his identity. They were talking about death that surrounds them and they can't escape it. They were talking about peace and their strongest wish for peace in the interview. All right, in the conclusion, Jennings only says that these drawings and interviews showed deeper and richer uh, insights, uh, narrative experiences, inside narrative experiences of children. They showed their fear, love, emotion, aspirations for peace, and traces of culture in their work. Any questions so far? No question? We are short of time, so what I'll do that so we can quickly look at the next article. uh, because it's a very short one. But before that, we just look at 4 things that she has mentioned here in terms of their narrative identities. She's saying they keep themselves, they represent themselves through their cultures, likes, dislikes, and relationships and experiences, right? So here she has only mentioned 5 strategies of representing the self. At number 2, she says they try to explain what they mean as best they can. I think in today's discussions, we were also trying to explain what we mean. And then she says actions may not be reflective of their intended meaning. And I think we can understand that in a couple of places. For example, the girl drew leaves on her chest, and until they spoke to her, they did not know that leaves actually means dead people are covered with leaves. She had drawn leaves only on her chest. And while it was very clear when a girl drew a patch on her mouth, it was very clear she was referring to silencing. But in certain other cases, meaning was not clear until they spoke to the kid. Then they said that children use at number 3 self-preservation strategies. Uh, a girl had covered her body with the armor, but she was only talking about self-preservation from comments of others. At number 4, she is talking about flexibility, like children used all kind of actions, expressions, and creative images to express their narrative identities, right? And I think that's it. Gee, any question? Attendance, I think let's go mark attendance for the second part. Amina, Arsalan, can you hear me? I think Amina was here earlier. She
मैं
probably
उसका मैसेज आया हुआ ग्रुप में कि इंटरनेट का प्रॉब्लम.
अच्छा अच्छा, इट्स ऑल राइट. मैंने उसको प्रेजेंट तो मार्क कर दिया बेस्ड ऑन हर प्रेजेंस एंड डिस्कशन सो फार. Arslan is not here. Binish,
Present, miss.
Dania,
Present, miss.
Hasham, Komal,
Present.
Laiba,
Ma'am, I'm present.
Mashal,
Present, ma'am.
Jahangir, and Noor. All right, I think
Present, miss.
Present.
right. I think we have marked only 2 students absent, that are Aris and Arslan. But does anyone know them?
Miss,
It's Eras.
Okay, Era.
and no, I know of them, like, I don't know why they're absent.
You know both of them, right? All right, they were they missed the next class. They missed the last class as well. So if you can inform them, I think I already texted both of them today. I added
Oh,
I
okay.
added Aris to the WhatsApp group because I had her number. I texted to Arslan too. I sent him the link. So if you can communicate to them that we'll have next class on Saturday.
Yes, miss, I'll let them know.
Okay. All right. That's
Miss Iraq,
Eras,
वो
तो
दूसरा
दोनों का
कौन
कौन
है?
है? Okay, I have the number. If you don't know her, I will. I have communicated to her and I have added her to the group. So I believe that she's seeing the messages, and I hope she can join next class.
Hmm.
हम इसको
Okay.
जी इसको हम पूरा तो नहीं पढ़ सकेंगे because we do not have sufficient time. But this is another article by Television, the German TV channel, and the author is Daphna Lamish. This is a very short article. I think in these 3 pages we have some text, and it's not even 3 pages long because we are seeing other things on these 3 pages. But this article actually talks about what you were discussing, what you were talking about, what you discussed about culture and about silencing, or about urban and rural lives in Pakistan, in Lahore or other parts of Punjab. Right. So I would say that uh, try going through it if you get time. Ji Jahangir, what do you want to say?
मैम मेरा इंटरनेट ऑफ हो गया तो मैंने ये कहना था कहना सो भी नहीं।
जी जी मैंने आपको प्रेजेंट मार्क किया बिकॉज यू वर टॉकिंग एंड यू सेड दैट आमिना टेक्स्टेड और उसके फौरन बाद यू डिड नॉट रिस्पॉन्ड योरसेल्फ, तो मैंने आपको प्रेजेंट मार्क कर दिया.
थैंक यू।
All I want to say that this article actually says that you are not born with a gender. You learn who you are through your everyday experiences. So it's not saying that we are not born with the sexual differences. It does say that we have biological and sexual differences when we are born. But then she mentions, Daphne Lamish mentions Simone de Beauvoir, and she said, a woman becomes one. She's not born. One is not born a woman, but becomes one. Because she's saying that this is because of the training that we give to girls and boys that we end up having a gender. So she is actually saying that gender is not by birth, but gender is through our experiences and learnings. Do you disagree with her? Who agrees with
No,
her?
miss.
No, miss, I agree with this point.
मिस जेंडर इन itself is a social construct. इसीलिए तो जेंडर और सेक्स में फर्क है ना. Sex is something that you're assigned by birth. It's with regards to your biology. But gender in itself is a social construct. आप gender अपना सीखते हो by identifying yourself with, a parental figure that is closest to your conception of what gender is. आपको पता चलता है कि एक औरत ऐसे act करती है, ये करती है, ये करती है, एक बंदा ऐसे होता है. तो gender itself is an ideological construct. It's not something that has been assigned to us by birth. अगर सोसाइटी कहती हो कि औरत जो है वो बाहर जाती है रोटी और बंदा जो है वो घर पे रहता है, तो फिर जो है वो our identities of what it means to be a man or a woman would have been different.
Okay, precisely. जो आपने अभी कहा that society teaches us कौन बाहर जाता है कौन बाहर नहीं जाता, and it teaches us what it means to be a woman. Precisely, that is what she is saying here, because she says, what stories do they tell us? And about what it means to be a female, you know, and what it means to be a male. So basically, she is only emphasizing that we learn about our gender through the stories that are taught to us.
जी.
And सोसाइटी में है वो ये कह रहा है कि these thoughts keep appearing and reappearing as a prophecy, perpetuated off and on, और उसको emphasizing, uh, constantly reaffirming binary division between masculinity and femininity. राइट.
जी.
सो बेसिकली वो इस पार्ट में सिर्फ यही कह रही है, और ये जो आगे आपको लिखा नजर आया, मीडिया कंटेंट इज डिवाइडेड अलोंग स्टीरियोटिपिकल जेंडर लाइंस. तो जो आपने कहा दैट इज अबाउट स्टीरियोटाइप्स, एंड मीडिया कंटेंट इज आल्सो डिवाइडेड along stereotypical lines. Despite वो जो differences जहांगीर ने earlier mention की थी कि it varies from family to family, but society at large does emphasize stereotypes. और टीवी को वो सिर्फ इतना कह रहा है कि और गेम्स को कि टॉयज और जो आप इफ़ यू वॉक इनटू प्ले स्टोर राइट जहाँ से और a toy store etc. So what you'll find different aisles for boys games and different aisles for children games and clothing etc. Girls and boys things are separated from very early stage. Boys are more into metallic and blue colors and girls are more into warm and pinks. So girlhood is constructed from very early stage. Boys are taught to be tough and girls are taught to be are considered that you have to learn more about beauty and emotions. Boys are presented as logical and rational, and girls motivated by accomplishments, while girls are portrayed as more emotional and romantic, motivated by relationships. So in many cases, you will find that girls are talking about graduation kab hogi, shaadi kab hogi, and boys are more talking about their achievement and future motivations कि career क्या होगा और job कहाँ मिलेगी. uh, right? Do you agree with these bits? And what all that she's saying, television does it all the time, and society does it all the time. Perpetuation of these two differences as a prophecy, and then emphasizing that girls should live this way and boys should live uh, as achievers or tough. लड़कों को encourage नहीं करते रोने के लिए. If boys cry.
मिस ऐसे काफी कॉमन होता है क्योंकि एक कॉन्सेप्ट होता है इसमें वी सी दैट men are encouraged to be more instrumental and women are encouraged to be more in the role of nurturance and caring. तो आई थिंक ये मीडिया के अंदर भी आपको नजर आता है इन टीवीज एंड फिल्म्स इट्स मोस्टली द मैन हु इज मेकिंग अ लॉट ऑफ डिसीजंस टेकिंग एक्शन being very emotionally stable and whereas और उनकी अगर आप पेरेंट्स पे भी देखें तो इतना काम नहीं करते whereas the women are shown to be rather timid या अगर थोड़ा सा दिखा भी रहे हैं कि it's an outspoken woman तो end decision बंदे ने ही लेना है फिर भी या they're gonna put in a scene जिसमें the guy ends up protecting the woman या इस तरह करके कुछ होता है तो I do think कि media does perpetuate these types of stereotypes और कि there is a lot more focus on the way that women look and whether or not they're smiling properly for the camera or crying beautifully ताकि वो मूवी के अंदर जब अच्छा लगे ऑडियंसेस को अच्छा लगे तो I do think it is there.
Okay. तो यहाँ पे इसने सिर्फ डेफना लेमिश इज सेइंग कि दिस reinforcement through media या in culture it becomes a self fulfilling prophecy. और अगर नहीं करते एज यू सेड कि जी मिस स्माइल दें और स्माइल नहीं दी तो इट्स नॉट कंसिडर्ड नॉर्मल सी और सोशल जेंडर अप्रोप्रिएटनेस. सो सोसाइटी जो है वो जो स्टीरियोटाइप्स बना दिए गए हैं दे बिकम नॉर्मल. जी बताइए.
Miss, I think कि मीडिया का एक काफी ज्यादा इसमें इम्पोर्टेंट रोल है क्योंकि the kind of roles, the kind of characters males get in movies that हमारे social constructs हैं हमारे genders के बारे में और sex के बारे में जैसे कि जो एक्शन मूवीज होती हैं उसमें पहले अब आके ऑब्वियसली अब हमें नजर आती हैं फीमेल लीड्स आती हैं लेकिन पहले जो हमारे मेन स्पाइडरमैन वगैरह सारे देयर ऑल मेल और इस तरह की जो मूवीज होती हैं जो स्ट्रेंथ बेसिकली अगर दिखानी होती है तो दे शो अ मेल कैरेक्टर. तो अदरवाइज अ लॉट ऑफ जिस तरह के जो यूजुअली ड्रामा जो ड्रामा सीरियल्स होते हैं उसमें फीमेल्स काफी ज्यादा लीड ले रही होती हैं तो ये मीडिया में जो पोर्ट्रेयल होता है फीमेल्स का और फिर मेल्स का वो काफी ज्यादा रिफ्लेक्ट करता है हमारे आइडियाज और ये सारे सोशल कंस्ट्रक्ट्स हैं. Or miss the media plays a very powerful tool in deciding a lot of things in deciding कि क्या चीज अब ट्रेंड में है क्या चीज जो है वो कल्चर का हिस्सा बन जाती है और स्पेशली आई थिंक इन एशियन साउथ ईस्ट एशिया जैसे इंडिया में आप देखें तो काफी चीजें जो है वो मीडिया से ही लोग लेते हैं अब with regards to what is considered to be normal. So I do think at the point where she says that the media reinforces stereotypes to the extent that it creates a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy is true, because the media is so powerful that they decide what is normal and what is not normal and how one should act and how one should not act.
Okay.
Definitely, I agree. And I think that abhi recently bhi people have started talking about this case. For example, for a long time there was no representation for the LGBTQI community, और अब जाके there is a little bit of representation, and that is what we've all been asking for कि अच्छा we should normalize this. काफी ज़्यादा ये लोग को प्रमोट कर रहे हैं, तो अब जाके हमें represented from women leaders हैं, तो अब वो representation आ रही है, तो now it is being थोड़ा सा normalized. तो मीडिया का इसमें काफी ज्यादा हाथ होता है.
अच्छा, यहाँ पे डेफिनेट लेमिश इज सेइंग
Yes,
जी बताइए.
I would also like to add that there are certain tropes and themes which also perpetuate these stereotypes. For example, damsel in distress and Smurf pet principle. Like they only focus on basically giving more power to the males and less to the females. So there are certain tropes in media that further reinforce these stereotypes.
All right, that's very correct. But here she says, Daphna Lamish, here it says, आपको शायद highlight नजर आ रही हो कि boys and girls consume media differently. Do you think that you consume media differently than boys? Jahangir, can you tell us how you consume media or how you use media in your daily life?
मैम अपनी बात करूँ तो मैं तो मीडिया बहुत कम कंज्यूम करता हूँ, बहुत ही कम, क्योंकि मेरी फील्ड डिफरेंट हो गई है यहाँ आके, तो ऐसा कोई लेना देना नहीं है.
Media
ऊपर से हर जगह
includes the cell phone you have in your hand right now. I assume you are talking to me on a cell phone. You are not using your computer, are you?
yes ma'am, I'm using my cell phone.
हाँ, तो मैं आपसे ये कही थी कि आप you consume media via cell phone as well. So I was trying to understand how you use media. So because here the question is that boys and girls consume media differently. कैसे यूज करते हैं अपना सेल फोन? इफ यू आर सिटिंग समवेयर, अभी जब क्लास खत्म होगी, वुड यू बी लुकिंग एट योर मैसेजेस, or would you be watching for example videos that somebody forwarded you on WhatsApp, or would you be reading funny messages that somebody has forwarded on WhatsApp again, or maybe on Facebook? So I was just asking you how you use media or how you consume media, because Lamish is saying that boys and girls use media differently. That will depend on what kind of person you are. The earlier article focused on identity construction and inner selves. So right now the question is, how can we relate our inner selves to our use of media?
मैं तो इसी तरह नॉर्मली जैसे लोग, अब मेरा तो बिल्कुल कॉमन ही वे है, यही है कि व्हाट्सएप यूज कर लिया, स्नैपचैट स्टोरीज देखनी, या कुछ अगर कर रहा हूँ स्टोरीज बना के भेज दी, फेसबुक पे वीडियोस आ जाती हैं जो दोस्तों ने मेंशन किया होता है वो देख ली, उनमें कुछ वो फनी भी होती हैं, हर किस्म की होती है, उन्होंने जिसमें मेंशन किया है वो देख ली पोस्ट, कुछ भी ना मिला तो यूट्यूब चला ली बस.
चलें, आपसे मैं एक स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चन पूछती हूँ, राइट? Sometimes people forward TikTok messages on WhatsApp, right? तो आपके पास आते होंगे TikTok messages.
टिकटॉक मैसेजेस या टिकटॉक मैम, एक तो वीडियोस होती हैं, मैसेजेस वो जैसे कोई पीछे वो लगा
कि जो forwarded messages आते हैं उसमें TikTok videos होंगे ना? Do you get TikTok videos via forwarding messages?
हाँ, टिकटॉक वीडियोस तो वो जो ऐसे फनी होती हैं, या कोई ऐसे दोस्त जो हैं वो इंटरकास्ट में कास्ट से रिलेटेड भेज देते हैं, तो वो एक दूसरे का मजाक बनाने के लिए इस तरह की आती हैं. वैसे ऐसे नहीं आती जैसे कि वो होती है ना एज डॉक्यूमेंटेड टाइप जो ऊपर लिखा हुआ आ रहा था और पीछे सीनरियां उन्होंने लोगों ने एडिटेड चलाई होती हैं, तो वो मैसेजेस या कोई पुरानी आयात इस तरह की नहीं आती। हाँ, कोई फन से रिलेटेड एंटरटेनमेंट में ही आती हैं ये चीजें, वो मतलब रिलीजियस नहीं आती या कोई मैसेजेस उस तरह के नहीं आते।
Okay, so you have basically explained already what kind of media you consume, because you are saying that they are not religious messages, they are funny messages that are forwarded between boys. Sometimes you guys are making fun of each other. That's what you said. So basically, that
Yes.
explains that explains how you consume media. So I
Yes.
think if any of the girls can add to this discussion about her media consumption experience, so I think that would be nice. क्योंकि यहाँ पे all it said कि media, boys and girls consume media differently. So would any girl like to add something here?
मिस अगर आई थिंक अगर आप मीडिया में देखें तो इट्स द टाइप ऑफ थिंग्स दैट आर बीइंग शोन ऑन द मीडिया दैट आर डिफरेंट। अगर आप स्पेसिफिकली मूवीज वगैरह में देखें तो अगर आप बहुत जनरलाइज करके देखें तो परहैप्स guys wouldn't be as interested in watching बहुत ज़्यादा इमोशनल मूवीज या इस तरह करके perhaps।
Okay. तो ये आर्टिकल भी तो एक्चुअली यही कह रहा है ना कि women like watching emotional content, और जो जहाँ you describe कर रहा था that was about consumption of like funny content, making fun of each other, और he said कि it's not religious in particular। वैसे तो टिकटॉक पे आई थिंक सॉन्ग्स बहुत ज़्यादा आते हैं, फनी कंटेंट बहुत ज़्यादा आता है। That's what he mentioned कि he is watching funny content sometimes, and sometimes the content is like about making fun of each other, इस किस्म का कंटेंट है। तो मैं आपसे वैसे पूछ रही थी कि आई जस्ट वांटेड टू अंडरस्टैंड बिकॉज शी इज सेइंग कि स्टडीज शो दैट boys, the two genders consume different kind of content, right? यहाँ पे इसने सिर्फ एक चीज़ कही है इन टर्म्स ऑफ जेंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन के जेंडर ब्लाइंड कंटेंट and programs. So, are you aware of any program that is gender blind? Any kind of content that you have seen that appears to be gender blind? Or she also includes counter stereotypes. The stereotypes that would probably show a girl playing, for example, uh, volleyball, football, or like the type of games that are associated with men quite often. So counter stereotypes or gender blind games. So I was just asking if you are aware of any media content that seems to be gender blind and shows women or men in roles that are not gender appropriate. All right, I think बहुत जी जी बताइए।
Miss, there's this show called One Day at a Time, and there it's basically, how it's how women dress and how men dress, and it's basically just the barrier between gender roles. It breaks that barrier, and it talks about all these things that are basically fed to us about how men should act or how women should act, or just different how sexes should act. And the show basically, in this one scene, it talks about, so there's this dad who's very he's very, like conservative, I guess, and his daughter comes out to him, and on his wedding day she wears a suit instead of a dress, and he loses it. But like then it talks about how these things, I don't know how to say it properly.
Okay, which show is that? Do you remember the title of the show?
Yeah, it's One Day at a Time.
Okay, so One Day at a Time, and I'm sure there are certain other shows that may show women in men's roles or men in the opposite gender roles. So they are saying that if a girl is shown to be very opinionated, uh, people would probably call her bully, and if a boy is shown soft, people will probably call him sissy. So, which
Yeah.
means that society makes people learn what is your gender role, and society has created gender appropriate roles that media keeps on reinforcing over and over again. And
Yes, Miss, and you
जी
highlighted
बताइए.
a part as well where it says that boys play video, like prefer online games, and girls don't. In that show as well, it talks about how it shows the guy not. It shows the girl being more interested in video games than the guy.
Right. So that's the same program.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think we are almost done. And what she's saying here that the genders internalize these concepts or self concepts. So media is actually teaching us through stereotypes or through counter stereotypes uh, what self constructs we can have and who we are. Mm, right? So media ties women to outer appearance, which means focusing on dresses, focusing on beauty, etc. And what she says here that when women internalize these concepts, they internalize self objectification and sexualization as well. That women themselves start objectifying themselves because they are trying to present themselves through clothing or through beauty uh, elements by emphasizing on their beauty or these things. So she's just trying to see that that is a way of self objectification or self sexualization. All right, so in the last part, she just moves on to ideas of self worth that we get from media when media emphasizes on representation of self with beauty or with the toughness. So it also emphasizes other concepts. I am ugly, I am fat, I'm worthless, or or something similar. Okay, so it says that it plays a role in the development of self-esteem of a person. All right. Okay. I hope you're not too tired because we tried almost reading the whole article. And if you get time, I would suggest just try looking at the last page because it's talking about superheroes and Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and how we develop interpersonal relationships with these characters. And there would be TV programs there that are showing, like different kind of a range of identities at present, and people identify with these different identities in differently. We identify with characters, we develop, we integrate. Once we identify, we integrate through identification. All right,
Miss, I have a question.
Ji Danya.
In the beginning, Jahangir talked about language as well, so I just wanted to know, do you think language plays an important role in identity?
Of course it does. Of course it does. आपको थोड़ा सा उसको जब when we start looking at media images और whatever we see around us, क्योंकि मैंने शायद mention किया था कि assignments में हमें 3-4 चीज़ें चाहिए होती हैं when we work in this class. हमें चाहिए होता है what we are watching on screen, so we need representation related discussion, and we also need reality related discussion. तो reality तो हम अपने experience में से ही ऐड करेंगे ना, and then we will also add literature in the discussion. तो ये तीनों चाहिए होंगी. Language does play a role because if we अगर language में if we are saying औरतें नाकिस उलकल होती हैं, so we are using the language to reinforce this. और इसी तरह के बेशुमार कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं, लाइक लड़के नहीं रोते, राइट. सो लैंग्वेज हैज़ अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग रिलेशनशिप with the development of the inner self or with reinforcement of appropriate behaviors, gender appropriate behaviors. हर चीज़ तो टेक्स्ट की फॉर्म में है. टेक्स्ट इज़ ऑल्सो मीडिया. लैंग्वेज ओरल ट्रेडिशंस हैं, मीडिया है, फिल्म्स हैं, सो मैनी डिफरेंट थिंग्स. सो लैंग्वेज का रोल तो ख़त्म नहीं होता. फिल्म इज़ ऑल्सो अ लैंग्वेज बिकॉज फिल्म के अंदर वॉट वी बेसिकली से दैट एवरी फ्रेम जो आप देख रहे हैं, यू कैन टेक इट एज अ वर्ड. सो इफ फ्रेम इज़ अ वर्ड, film language mein, when you put these frames together, you are putting words together to form a sentence. Okay, so
Thank you.
okay, all right, any other questions or we should close the session? I think कि आपको break दे देनी चाहिए 15-20 मिनट की. I don't know if you have another class today or जो भी है. Okay.
Yes, Miss, some of us have a class
Okay.
at 12.
आप
Miss,
चाहे
ये class I think recording हो रही है. Would it be possible for you to upload the recording?
हाँ, ये रिकॉर्डिंग तो हो रही है. आपको रिकॉर्डिंग नहीं पसंद तो आइंदा नहीं करेंगे रिकॉर्डिंग. आई विल सर्टनली अपलोड इट सो यू कैन एक्सेस इट.
नहीं नहीं, I was asking if you could upload this as well, क्योंकि वो net disconnect करते तो फिर कुछ parts रह जाते हैं note down करने के लिए. वो क्लास में present
गूगल क्लासरूम में सबसे ऊपर आपको एक लिंक नजर आ रहा होगा. इट सेज ऑनलाइन क्लासेस. लेट मी शो इट टू यू. तो समटाइम्स वहाँ पे फिर मैं इसको पोस्ट कर देती हूँ. आई विल अपलोड इट एंड यू कैन एक्सेस इट. अच्छा, यहाँ पे सबसे ऊपर था. आई थिंक आई हैव मूव्ड इट डाउन. विमेन एंड मीडिया में अभी भी ऊपर नज़र आ रहा है. नहीं, आई थिंक के लॉकडाउन हमारे सिर्फ स्प्रिंग में हुआ, फॉल में नहीं था. सो स्प्रिंग में आई वॉजंट टीचिंग विमेन एंड मीडिया. Spring में I wasn't teaching film theory and criticism. Spring में I was teaching women and media. So this classroom has online classes on the top. So what I'll do कि यहाँ पे film theory and criticism में online classes का एक link create करके I will post this recording there. ठीक है?
ठीक, thank you miss.
All right. Take care. आप क्लास के अलावा भी कोई बातचीत कर सकते हैं. इफ़ यू वांट टू डिस्कस ड्यूरिंग द क्लास और फील फ्री टू योर यू नो. हमने काफ़ी सीरियस क्लास ले ली, लेकिन वी कैन डिस्कस लाइट थिंग्स एज वेल. ओके, हाफिज़, बाय बाय.
Hafiz,
Happy Christmas.